Hello and welcome to the Coming of Cage podcast, your Nicolas Cage movie review podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Derek, and your other host, Ryan, is right alongside me virtually here.
Virtually alongside Derek. That's correct, as I usually am. And this week we're doing a very special episode,
Woo!
the final movie of the trilogy, the Holy Trinity of Nick Cage movies. Episode 98 we're on now, closing in on that mystical 100. But yeah, we're doing The Rock.
Yeah, The Rock, starring Sean Connery, Ed Harris, William Forsythe, John C. McGinley, Tony Todd, and of course, Nicolas Cage.
That's right.
Michael Bean, too, is in there for a little bit.
And this is the third. We've done Face Off and Con Air, and these are those. If you talk to Cage fans, are kind of the holy trinity of what he's known for from the late '90s in terms of movies. This is his action movie phase.
That's right. So this is episode, like Ryan said, this is episode 98. If you're curious, Con Air was episode 68 and Face Off was 81. So if you want the Trinity, 68, 81, 98. There's your episodes. So yeah, so for those who don't know about The Rock, this is about, quote, an FBI chemical weapons expert and a former SAS soldier turned political prisoner must break into Alcatraz prison when a rogue military group led by a renegade general takes it over and threaten a nerve gas attack on San Francisco. It's a pretty good summary.
Yeah,
Pretty much the movie. Michael Bay.
yeah, it is Michael Bay and Jerry Bruckheimer.
Yeah. Very Michael Bay. I mean, if you watch Michael Bay movies, this is right there in what makes a Michael Bay movie a Michael Bay movie.
Yeah, I didn't count the number of explosions, but at some point, like halfway through, I was like, I should be counting the number of explosions in this movie. Their budget for explosions was good, and this was in the '90s when they were doing actual explosions and not CGI explosions. So
That's right. Yeah. And it's this he does the spin shot from slightly below, and stuff like that. There's some very specific Michael Bay
yeah,
things.
there was some stuff that felt like the guy that directed Face Off felt reminiscent of that.
Oh,
I can't
that's
believe I'm
interesting.
forgetting his name.
Yeah, John Woo.
John Woo, yeah,
Yeah.
duh. Yeah, there was some of that stuff feels very reminiscent of John Woo when he does like the spin moves with the camera and stuff. He does
Mm.
that in uh, uh, Bad Boys also.
That's yeah, exactly. Like this
He
is
does.
this is that
But I think
iconic.
John Woo was doing that first, and he kind of borrowed that from John Woo.
Yes, no, no, no. I agree with that, and I think personally, I think when John Woo does it, it doesn't come off as silly as when Michael Bay does it.
Yeah, that's true. Well, back when yeah, John Woo was doing it, it was like cool action movie stuff, and in this it feels more ironic or like, less serious.
It's a little over the top,
Yes,
especially I
exactly.
mean, especially in Bad Boys. It's because you usually have like there's like a helicopter in the background too, and
Right, exactly.
you
Yeah.
know, shit just got real. But yeah, so some cool things about The Rock though. This was actually shot at Alcatraz prison for real. They are on site shooting it there. That was a very big deal for Bruckheimer and Bay and then everybody involved because the studio did not want to pay for that. But they did. They did do it. So that's really, for the most part, what Alcatraz looks like, at least the above ground building type stuff. So that's kind of neat. But yeah, yeah, lots of improvising by Nicolas Cage in this one. They got to improvise quite a bit. But Ryan, let's kick things off. Let's go.
Yeah, so if you haven't watched this before, welcome. The way we usually do this is that I take notes as the movie goes on, and we just kind of go through those notes and hit the plot points and anything that I saw that was noteworthy. And since we had to postpone this podcast due to me having some serious allergies, which I'm still getting over, so I apologize if my voice sounds nasally. But yeah, at this point we'll be trying to decipher what some of these notes are because I was watching this while I wasn't feeling my best, and also it's been a few days. So Derek usually has a good enough memory, and he loves this movie. This is his favorite of the Trinity. So
I don't
Although I know
know.
you go back and forth between this and Con
I
Air.
do. It's hard. I love them both so much.
I did enjoy this one more this watch, I think. I don't know why, but I don't know. It was I still don't think it's my I think it's my least favorite of the three,
Mm,
but I do have a more appreciation for it than I did before this rewatch.
that's fair. I mean, you've always been a huge Face Off fan,
Oh, I
so
love Face Off, John Woo, yeah,
yeah.
that kind of stuff. Yeah, so on this movie we start off with two title screens only, which is important because a lot of these movies only they are indie and have like 12 different production companies, but this one only has two because it was big production companies.
Yeah.
Right away we start off with a funeral,
As you do, and
a military funeral.
it's raining, of course.
Of
That's the
course it is,
law.
yeah.
If you have a funeral in a movie, it has to be raining.
Yeah, some sort of military funeral. We get it popped up that Sean Connery was an executive producer, which I thought was interesting.
Allegedly, he specifically wanted to do this because of Nicolas Cage. He
I
wanted
could
to
see
work with
that
Nick.
they did have good chemistry throughout this. So
Right?
I'm not the biggest Sean Connery fan. He wasn't a great person in real life from the
No.
stories we've heard, but in this movie he was very good, and I see why people liked him as James Bond. I didn't really. That was a different era from, but in this movie I thought he was quite good with Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, this is my favorite Sean Connery movie. I'm not saying I've necessarily seen all of his, but I've seen all of his James Bond movies. He's not my he was never my favorite James Bond, even though I grew up on the originals and stuff. I still preferred like Roger Moore, for example. Um, but I love this movie and I love him in this movie. I do like the fan theory that it is his James Bond character. And I think even after, watching it again, I think the fan theory holds up. I don't think there's a reason it can't be true. So that's kind of fun.
Right. Agreed. Um, so we get some close-ups of Ed Harris at the gravestone in a conversation that he has there, and this
Hmm.
kind of sets up the rest of the movie. We go from that into this big heist scene with
Yeah.
Ed Harris and a bunch of other military people that are becoming traitors to their country. Well, but not in their mind.
No, of course not.
They're stealing a bunch of weapons that are some of the most like war crime-ish weapons
Hmm.
ever.
Hmm.
They're basically virus, something that melts your skin and like it's the slowest, most painful death you can imagine. Um,
Yeah, it's pretty awful.
yeah, and they're stealing like 13 warheads or something with this. And they're trying to steal more,
They
uh,
want 15.
but one of them break like there are these tiny little beads. Well, not tiny little. They're like
Golf ball size?
golf ball size, slightly bigger than golf ball size beads, um, that are glass and full of this thing. And so one of them comes loose and they evacuate the area, and one guy gets left in, and you see it like boil his skin while he's still alive. And, whatever. It's pretty terrible. Um,
It is a great movie prop, though.
it is a
The,
great movie prop. And fun fact about the actual movie prop, if you ever run into these beads, which they did make quite a few of for the movie, so they are out there. Most of them are empty now because they used green aloe vera
Interesting.
as like the substance inside the beads, and it evaporates over
Yeah.
time, and so they're not completely sealed. So anyone that you see with one that still has green in it, it's either a scam or they've refilled it with aloe vera with a syringe of some kind,
Yeah.
which people do. I think they had one at Prop Store recently that had them all full.
Yeah, I mean, I
Um,
think if I had if I had a real one, I think I'd be very nervous to do it, but I think I would want to, keep it filled up in good condition and everything. But yeah, that's cool.
I do have 3D print files for that prop if you want to make your own.
See, that's the thing. Like, I can't imagine that I'd be able to make the beads look halfway decent.
Yeah, you
Like,
just use like ornaments from like Christmas,
oh,
like clear ornaments, put aloe vera in them.
oh, that's
Anyway, let's
interesting.
not get off the
Yeah.
topic here. But yeah, that's a fun prop fact from that. movie. But we do get to see guys going akimbo for the first time with two guns.
Yeah.
I think they're all using trank guns, so he's using like
Mhm.
akimbo trank guns, which is hilarious to me. Um,
Yeah, because they're trying. So this movie's kind of interesting because they're trying not to kill anybody, right? And Ed Harris's character, he's the movie's trying to set him up as having the moral high ground, doing the right thing and or doing the wrong things for the right reasons type of character. Obviously, that changes as the movie goes, but that's where we start. We start with no one's going to die.
yeah. Which even from the beginning, or well, once you find out his motivation, essentially his motivation is that so many military people die, don't get proper funerals, and their families don't get compensated for their service. So he wants that to change. He wants them to have proper funerals and the money, and their families wired $1 million each, which is listen, I get it. I mean, that's a sympathetic hero or sympathetic
Mhm.
hero, sympathetic villain, right?
Right.
But also in order to get that, he's threatening to massacre giant cities with the most painful and terrible way of killing somebody you can possibly imagine. It's
That's the
not like a
thing.
quick death. He's
No.
willing to kill all these civilians with a terrible slow death. And possibly, like, we don't know what happens to people who are on the outskirts that just like get hit with a little bit. Does only half their skin melt off and they don't die? Now they have to live disfigured. There,
Hmm.
it brings to mind a lot of questions. It's hard for me to feel sympathetic for somebody like that when they're threatening this thing
Hmm.
that is going to be that terrible. And I know he said nobody's going to die. That quickly doesn't have, that quickly changes in the movie.
Well, because it seems like he is running a different mission than all the people he has
Yeah.
grouped together to run. They're not on the same page. So even if we want to say Ed Harris had zero intention of launching those for real, if we just agree to that for a moment, which I'm not saying we do, but let's just pretend, nobody else agreed to that.
Yeah.
And even Tony Todd's character, and I love Tony Todd, but even Tony Todd's character is like, we're mercenaries now. And
Right.
mercenaries get paid. So he's like, we're killing people if I don't get my check.
Yeah.
So it gets dark very, very quick.
Yeah. So after that scene with the heist, we get our introduction to Nick Cage's character, Stanley Goodspeed, which is just a hilarious name to me.
It's a great name.
But we do a bingo card
Yeah.
with this, and where we fill out various things that are tropes in Nick Cage movies. And one of those is Nick shoots a gun, and he shoots a Nerf gun right at the beginning here. So I
Yeah.
think that counts. And we find out that he's a Beatlemaniac because he unwraps which never comes back, but he unwraps this record at work that he says is like $600, which now is probably like
Yeah,
$12,000.
right. Jesus.
I figured you're a record guy, so you would have looked up the value of that record, but
I didn't, but yeah, if it's an original pressing and like mint condition and stuff, yeah, I'm sure it's four figures now.
yeah, and he says that he's a Beatlemaniac, and he doesn't want his girlfriend to find out that he spent this much on a record or something like that, and that's why he had it at work.
Hmm.
Um, But we get this scene in a gas, like, not a gas chamber because that's a terrible thing to call it, but that's basically what it is.
Oh,
Like
yeah, it's
where
kind of
with
like
the
a clean
docks,
room type space,
yeah, with like where they are supposed to open things that could have like terrible, gases or
explosives and
explosives or stuff like that in it. But this time he's unboxing this thing that they think has some sort of chemical gas in it, and it does. They pull out some porno magazines, and then you know, something sets the gas off, and it starts going crazy, and they can't get the showers turned on, and whatever this gas is corroding their suits that they're wearing in there, and they're having to prepare themselves to stab themselves in the heart with this anti anti gas or whatever, some sort of solvent that was.
I mean, is it
It's
just
unclear
adrenaline?
what it is. It's unclear what it is. They
Yeah,
said it
right.
could save your life. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, Nick Cage is trying to defuse this bomb that's also in there because that would kill everybody. While this is all going on, and he ends up defusing it, and they get the showers on in time. But it's kind of our introduction to Stanley Goodspeed.
Yep. Very quickly letting us know that he is extremely competent at what he does. He knows his shit.
He's a nerd. You know, they make it very
Hmm.
clear. He never seems like he's a nerd throughout this movie, but I think the whole Beatlemaniac thing was to make him seem more nerdy, but he doesn't really seem nerdy. I don't know.
No, but and even like later in the movie when they're doing the when they're infiltrating Alcatraz and they're coming up from the water, like they're getting ready to go into the water and stuff, it was supposed to make him look dorkier than everybody else, right? Because like everybody else, these are like trained field agent, military,
Navy
FBI
SEALs,
type.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so he's supposed to look dorky. Maybe like I didn't freeze frame or anything. Maybe he does, but he just seems like he just hasn't done it before, you know?
Right.
So,
Right. He doesn't seem especially dorky or anything. It's very interesting, but
yeah,
so then we cut to him after work where he's playing a guitar naked in a chair,
like you do.
which nerd is so nerdy. You know, every nerd I know just sits in chairs naked and plays guitar. So
Yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, I'm not sure what they were trying to do with him because the only character development we really get for him is before Alcatraz,
yeah,
right? Once that happens, it's no more character development for him. So it's like they were
yeah,
trying to force feed us everything before things got intense, and I don't
right.
think they knew what to do with him.
Maybe not. I don't know. But his girlfriend comes in and she looked so young. I was like, she's got to be 10 years younger, but she was not.
She's not.
No.
No,
But because that's another bingo card slot for those following along. Um,
I think she's 8 or 7
Something
years
like that.
younger than
Yeah.
him.
But
Yeah.
she looks a lot younger than him in this movie. But she comes in and he's like, she asked about his day and he's like, it was terrible. Could you imagine bringing a kid into this world where you know everybody wants to kill you and everything is exploding and the world's burning all around you? And she's like, "Oh, hey, I'm pregnant."
And I mean, as
Yeah,
soon like that's exactly what's about to happen.
yeah. And so they want to get married. He's not the most confident about it, but you know, that's kind of where they're headed at this point.
Hmm.
Um, so now cut back to Ed Harris, who is on a tour in Alcatraz and ends up taking like this whole tour group hostage, and all those people come in, and they're basically making Alcatraz their headquarters for
Right.
this terrorist threat, which is basically what it is. But yeah, we find out that the threats are over reparations and money for the families and making things right for those military people that passed away. And then we cut back to Nick getting laid with woman on top sex, which is another bingo card
Yeah.
plot. Um,
On like the roof, they have his
yeah, they're just
beautiful
boning.
condo.
Yeah. I'm like, does he own the whole building? And he's just so confident that nobody's going to come out here, or he doesn't care. One of the two. Also, does he ever wear clothes in this condo? Because apparently they're just boning all the time, or he's just naked all the time in this condo.
I
But
think he's wearing clothes in this scene. I think he's got
yeah,
pants on.
I think his girlfriend is wearing clothes also, and they're just
She
kind of
is, yeah. She's basically fully clothed.
yeah. So they're just like slipping things to the side and doing it on the roof, as if somebody coming out to see him would be like, "Oh, they're not having sex." You know, like I can't see a penis. I'm sure there's nothing happening.
It's an interesting choice because this is a rated R movie. So it's not like they
Yeah, there's
couldn't
no boobs. There's no,
there's no
you know,
nudity in this.
yeah.
Like there easily could have been. There was nothing
It's a
stopping
90s
them.
movie, a 90s action movie. There, you know, by every tell, there should have been a topless woman in this movie, but there wasn't. So good
It's
on
kind of
them.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, but there wasn't really in Con Air either, was there?
Correct. And that's also a very rated R movie. That like there's like sexual violence and things like that are discussed and threatened and things, but there is no
Was there
nudity.
any in Face Off?
Nudity, I want to say no, but again, like more like sexual stuff
Yeah,
happens in Face Off, but I don't
true.
think there's any nudity there either. So it is kind of interesting that his big three action, blockbusters, the Trinity, all hard R movies, no nudity.
Yeah, yeah, it's a little weird. Like, I'm not upset about it or anything. It's just, yeah, for the time, unusual.
Well, and because in our bingo game we have a nudity square because so many of his movies do have nudity. It is
Right.
interesting that arguably his most popular three don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so he gets a call in the middle of having sex that he has to go answer. Um, and he says, I got to go to California or whatever to deal with this. And he says, you can come with me.
Now look, if I had his job and I'm getting called to go across the country, it's that important that I'm physically there. I'm probably not inviting anyone with me until I have confirmed the situation.
Right.
But that's just me.
So in Cali, these people are discussing like how do we get into Alcatraz? How do we get in there? They pinpointed these guys. They know where they're at. Um, they need to get into Alcatraz, take them down. And who could possibly know that? Nobody has any knowledge. Nobody's ever escaped Alcatraz.
Never.
Well, there was this one guy, and we covered it up, but he's a professional escape artist. Who like it was a former SAS agent. Although they don't really bring that up, I don't think until later in the movie. They just call him a former or a professional escape artist.
Right. Well, because the idea here was, that we find out later, of course, is that he's more or less being held without any rights. He's never had
No,
a
with no
trial,
trial, yeah.
and all of that. And so they can't, he does not exist is the trick because they can't admit that because he's SAS, he's British. He's
Right.
from an ally, and we're essentially keeping this guy without trial. That would be a big problem, I would think, from the international community if that were true,
You
you
would
know.
think, yeah.
But I
Uh,
will say now, Stanley Goodspeed, not kind of a great name for a character. John Mason, on the other hand, it's a pretty strong name. It's a good name for a character. I like
yeah,
that.
agreed. Um, so they bring him out and put him in like an interrogation room, and they're trying to convince him to do this job for him.
And he's got this like super long hair and everything. It's great.
Yeah, and for some reason, their virus and gas expert is privy to sitting inside this room to watch the interrogation. Made no sense to me at all why this guy would be here. Like, just think of the logistics. There's no reason why this guy should be here. He's never interrogated someone. He doesn't have any, like, this has nothing to do with him, basically. This guy.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. He's not a field agent. He says it
Right,
himself. Like he's an expert in what he does, and it's very important what he does. But in the Venn diagram, these are two separate circles.
right. But for some reason, he's standing in there, and the guy that they send in to like try and get him to join up is, not getting him to do it. And then Stanley Goodspeed says something that convinces them they should send him in.
Hmm.
And John Mason, the prisoner, Sean Connery, he can instantly tell this guy has no fucking idea what he's doing, and he's going to be able to get everything he wants because he's a formally trained SAS agent. They learn about all this stuff. They know how all this stuff works, and that he can instantly see through everything this guy is saying.
Hmm.
But so he ends up getting him to sign the paperwork, um, and then finds out after promising the guy that he would be taken care of, that they were gonna after this event was done, they were gonna put him back in jail with no trial and no nothing.
Hmm. Yeah, because the deal is a full pardon, but
Right.
director Womack, who is an antagonist slash villain in his own right, in very different ways, just tears it up, which is just they really don't paint any of the government organizations in a positive light in this movie. I will say that for
No,
sure.
but that interrogation scene is great,
It's
despite not
great.
making any sense. And one of the things that he asked for was like a night's stay at some hotel, the Hilton or
Yeah.
something like that, and somebody to cut his hair.
Hmm.
And so they bring him up to this, penthouse or whatever, and bring in a hairstylist, and he gets his hair cut. They said no scissors, so the hairstylist is only allowed to use a buzzer, but still does a great job.
Yeah, he
I
looks
hope
great.
I
Sean
hope
looks
they gave
great.
him I hope they gave him a tip,
Yeah.
especially after everything else he had to deal with. But yeah, then he makes an escape attempt right there, at like jumping off the side of the building, or like, oh, he's hanging the guy off the side of the building.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, Womack, yeah.
Womack, and
Because we're
yeah,
quickly learning there's a history here, and maybe Womack's just not on the level.
right. And so he like goes to drop Womack, and Stanley like grabs the rope, and then a bunch of other guys come in and grab the rope. And he had run, Sean Connery had run and gotten on the elevator somehow, and
Well, he
Nick was
distracts
chasing
everybody
him.
by ordering every single food room service has to offer. So all the agents are distracted, just eating all this crazy food. which is
Yeah,
pretty funny.
yeah.
Again, not really showing these agencies in a positive light. Like they're just
Right.
that
They're very bad at their
unprofessional.
job. But incompetent cops is that could be a
Its own square.
bingo card square for sure. Yeah,
Should
yeah.
we add that nearing the end here?
Probably,
I'll think
probably.
about it. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so he gets on the elevator and he's able to get out of the hotel and steal somebody's Humvee. And we get like one of the most iconic parts of this movie, which is the Ferrari Humvee chase. Although
Yeah.
the Ferrari isn't really involved in most of it, it's
No.
mostly the Humvee and like government cars. Nick is in the Ferrari, but he's a ways back,
Hmm.
and he gets stopped fairly early on, like blocked by somebody. Has to take some routes around, and ends up having to like do some investigative work to find out like what's going on and catch up to him.
Yeah.
He has to call
No,
one of his buddies back at like his headquarters to look up this guy and find his daughter, and his daughter lives in town. And so Nick gets the idea that he's going to go see his daughter. So he goes to the daughter's house and follows her,
hmm.
and she goes to meet up with her dad. Um,
Supposedly shooting the chase scene, which is really done in San Francisco, was an absolute nightmare.
oh, I'm
And
sure.
just like logistically, financially, everything was
Well, a
just,
lot of the places you see like that is chase happening are like main streets in San Francisco that you like are you see in a lot of movies,
yeah.
but
Oh,
not
yeah.
during chases and stuff necessarily. They're just like iconic places in the city. So yeah, I mean, I can only imagine that it was a nightmare to deal with just the logistics of this
Hmm.
whole thing. And imagine living in that city around this time. It probably was a nightmare for them trying to get around.
I mean, there is something to be said for living in a city where they never shoot any movies.
Right.
We never have entire blocks shut down for production.
Yeah. But then they meet up. Nick lets him have this conversation with his daughter before like calling in backup. And we get the iconic cut the chit chat a-hole line.
The way he does it is so great. There's like this long pause, and yeah, it's very interesting, right? Because at this point, Mason, I think, easily could have escaped and gone underground if that was his goal, but that wasn't his goal. He wanted to see his daughter, and so it's very
And he
interesting,
thought he was going to be set free, so he was told her he'd, see her again before too long.
right?
And when all the agents come and Nick interrupts, he doesn't make him look bad in front of his daughter. He tells the daughter that he's on a mission with, the FBI or whatever, and so makes him look more like a hero, makes him look
Hmm.
good. And I fully believe that everything that happens in this movie after that point is because John Mason remembers that Nick Cage's character was good to him and
Yeah.
is a good man.
Hmm.
And
Well,
yeah.
that's the key, right? Like in a lot of our movies, we have kind of a running trope that Nick's character is a bad person. He's just less bad than everybody else in the movie, so he's the hero. In this one, he's legitimately a good person trying to do good things. He just works for some other people who aren't good,
Right.
Well,
And
just really Womack, but
we find out that the plan is to have Nick and well, it wasn't originally to have Sean Connery's character go in, but he can't draw a map. He only remembers it by like going in there.
hmm.
And so they send him and Nick in. Um, and yeah, so and for some reason, instead of evacuating his girlfriend, so he finds out that his girlfriend's coming,
Hmm.
her fiance is coming to the city, and he tries to tell her no, but she's coming anyway. Well, instead of like an agent evacuating her out of the city, they just pull her into the command center so that if this bomb does happen, then she'll die too.
So it's unclear where the command center is exactly. Maybe it's not like in San Francisco proper and it's far enough away where they're convinced that's not where they'll get hit.
Maybe, I don't know. It just seemed
That's
like
where
a
I would have put
weird
it, right? Like, because it doesn't
area.
need to be logistically in downtown. It can be off somewhere. So, but we don't really get an answer for that. We don't get to see where it's located or anything. That's a little unclear. They're just
Yeah.
in a building somewhere.
Yeah, so we get the island assault from the Navy SEALs and Sean and Nick. And we get a nice joke from Sean Connery about avoiding gang rape, which is fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Um,
there's a that joke, and then there's like an ageism joke built into it because he's getting older, and
yeah,
yep, yep.
yep. So they have to like go through this furnace,
Yeah,
and
so they're
like there's
going
no way in.
underneath, they're going into the water underneath through the sewer system to kind of go under and up into Alcatraz. And there's this giant labyrinth underneath, apparently. I don't know how real that is, but
And
that's where they're.
they get to this door that there's no way to open, but it just so happens that right next to it is a some sort of a furnace or incinerator or
That's still
something.
running, even though
Yeah, that
Alcatraz has not been in operation for like 50 years.
right, and it is set up like a puzzle room where you have
It's like a
flame
Tomb Raider game.
every 7 seconds in like 5 foot increments, so that there's just enough room for you to lay between the flames, which I want to point out would still burn the shit out of you if you were
It
that
reminds
close.
it reminds me of the scene in Galaxy Quest with like the smashing
Yes,
hammer things that they have to go
exactly. Like,
through.
why does this exist in this building?
Why is this in the ship?
But they
Um,
all think that Sean Connery is going to abandon them or die, but he doesn't. He unlocks the door.
they do
Um,
assume that he bolted and didn't die. No one's like, well, maybe he died. They're just like, nope, he bolted. He's gonna leave us here, which
but he
is kind of
doesn't.
interesting.
He doesn't. And then they continue through the sewers and end up going into the shower room, which is where one of the people that works for Ed Harris had set up a very specific type of motion alarm
Hmm.
that Sean Connery wasn't prepared for. And they set that off and basically get massacred in this room.
Now, the motion device is cool, great. There's a lot of guys that are part of Ed Harris's group. You couldn't just have one in there with a walkie-talkie just in case, because
Why
the
do you
guy,
need it? It was
well,
apparently a computer controlled alarm, so they all just can run down there when they need to.
but they almost were able to bypass it, right? Like they kind of bump it by accident. I think that, if they did that 100 times, 40 of those times, maybe they bypass it, right? So like for me, like, just keep a guy there just in case.
Meh.
Yeah, okay. I don't know.
So yeah, they get kind of ambushed in there because of that motion alarm, and everybody basically except Nick and Sean dies.
Yeah, because they're down below with like this dude who's supposed to be attached to Mason's hip. He's kind of a younger guy anyway. They all get just totally slaughtered up there, and it's kind of by accident because again, right, they're trying to paint Ed Harris's character as a sympathetic antagonist and not just like an evil villain. And so he doesn't want anybody dies. He's given Michael Bihn's character, who's the commander here, like all these opportunities for everyone to put their guns down. He really doesn't want anybody to die. And then, of course, some like rock falls somewhere, even though this room has been sitting for decades. A rock falls and that triggers people to start shooting each other. And
Yeah, and Ed Harris is shown to be fairly distraught from this because he didn't want anybody to die, even though he's threatening thousands of people's lives,
well, he especially doesn't want other
military people to die.
soldiers, yeah,
Yeah.
military to die, because that's the whole reason he's doing this. So I think, you know, if he's ranking people to kill, these guys would have been at the very bottom of that list.
Yeah.
So and he's trying to tell everyone to stop. Everyone's ignoring him, which again, these are all supposed to be highly trained people. A lot of them are ex-Navy SEALs and stuff, and no one is hearing him and stopping the firing. And like it's just I don't know. It seems like a pretty unprofessional crew given their
Well,
backgrounds.
I think it's also kind of to show that the Ed Harris crew is not on the same page and they're
Hmm.
more like bloodthirsty, mercenaries than they are soldiers.
Right, exactly. Like they're doing it for the money. He's doing it for the moral,
Or
ethical.
or just because they want to kill people with
Sure, yeah.
no repercussions.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, we get the line from Sean Connery about winners going home and fucking the prom queen, which is one of the iconic lines. I don't particularly love that line, but I know it's an iconic line for some people.
But Stanley gets to say that he is marrying the prom queen.
Yeah,
So, yeah, good for him.
right. So they're trying to get in. Well, there's a throughout this movie, there's a bunch of back and forth where is Sean Connery going to leave? Is he not going to leave? Is he going to leave? It's not my favorite thing.
It feels like it pads the runtime a little bit because it does
A
happen a
lot. This is a
lot.
long fucking movie.
Yeah. Well, because it even
But
happens like at the very tail end of the movie, he does it again.
yeah,
It just
yeah,
kind of
it's
keeps
a little
going.
annoying.
Yeah.
Not my favorite part of the movie, but they at some point get to the next round or get to the first round of these warheads. And in the room with them is, I don't know, a bunch of guys, and a bunch of them die. But then on this, the one guy they shoot down like a heating element or something. I don't remember what it was exactly, off the ceiling, and it falls and squishes his head.
Oh yeah.
And so Stanley's trying to disarm this warhead while this body is like twitching.
Yeah, the leg keeps twitching.
Yeah, and he asks John Mason if that's normal, and he's like, yeah,
That happens sometimes.
yeah, and he's like, it's distracting.
Can you do something about it? He's like, what do you want me to do? Kill him again?
Yeah, yeah, that was a good moment. That was funny.
You can start seeing some of the chemistry,
Right.
and stuff like that. The rapport is growing here. It's pretty funny. And Stanley's kind of wigging out a bit at this point.
Yeah.
He's still obviously very good at what he does, but he knows how dangerous it is, and that he's not, used to killing people or having people die and around him and stuff. So he's wigging out.
So the way that they're disarming these missiles is that they're not like disposing of the chemical gases or anything that's in them. They're just taking basically the chips that are used to track, like
Hmm.
send the missiles up to like track where they're supposed to be going or whatever. So it renders them inoperable essentially. But what all the chemicals are still there.
Right, which is kind of an interesting tactic because I mean they're only going to launch a couple of those missiles and see them all fail before they stop, and they're like, okay, obviously there's a problem, and so you still have 81 civilians who have been captured as hostages that could be killed using this gas, and there doesn't seem to be a plan for if this had gone well, if the incursion had gone well and removed all the chips, what was the plan?
Right.
After that. There's still never like, okay, well, what would be next? Like, okay, you save San Francisco, but you still have a dozen or so rogue agents with 13 of these canisters that could kill, tens of thousands of people. So what do you do? That's never discussed.
See, also I feel like they made this the most pain in the ass way to deal with these missiles, period. Because like he has to pull all these glass balls out every time, and the chip is like inside the thing. That you're telling me they couldn't have just like gotten a giant magnet or like an EMF or something to just fry all the electronics in these things? Like even if they, I'm not saying
Yeah.
like launch a missile that's an EMF.
No,
I'm
no,
like
no.
give him a little handheld thing that you can just
Mhm.
stick on the side, boom, EMF.
Well, look, I'm no munitions expert or
I'm
anything like
sure they
that,
have shielding
but
on them, but
well,
if
even
you're
from a
that close
construction
anyway,
standpoint, though, even if these were not in the wrong hands, right? Wouldn't you want to be able to access that type of technology without killing everybody in the base?
right.
It just seems like a bad design.
It is a really poor design, but that's how they get like the intrigue or whatever, the suspense whenever he's working on them.
And they do,
Yeah,
they really build that up very well, especially because in the beginning, right, that we get to watch somebody get killed by this thing. So the movie is very good at really level setting how dangerous and fragile this stuff is.
yeah,
It's a
yeah,
good device. It may not have been designed well in the real world, but from a movie perspective, it does keep the tension high.
right. And after this, like he disarms these warheads in this room, and right as he's finishing, like they are ambush or they're starting to get ambushed. Like people are starting to get to this room, and so they have to run, and they fall through a vent or something and land in mine carts,
Yeah, they jump down like a chute vent type thing.
which is directly connected to mine carts, I guess. As in Alcatraz, there's mine carts everywhere, I guess, and it's basically like Donkey Kong Country.
It's exactly yes, that's so funny. It's exactly what it looks like. This was apparently supposed to be a much larger part of the movie, like minecart chasing, but they ran over budget and time, and so they had to cut it to what we ended up getting in the movie. But it was supposed to be like a whole thing. I
Yeah,
can't imagine what that was going to look like and why that needed to be there for them, but it was supposed to be much bigger.
right. So yeah, there's this whole scene of them like getting chased by other guys that like the Ed Harris's crew that jumped in mine carts also.
Yeah, like John
It's
C.
very
McGinley's character and stuff.
80s and 90s like weird action decision, but
I feel like
Uh,
this would have been turned into a ride at Universal or something,
Probably that's
you
what they're
know?
setting it up for. But of course, the mine carts are bulletproof, and
I mean, maybe they are.
Anyway,
It's not like I know anything about mine carts. Yeah, maybe they are. I don't know.
yeah. Of course, it culminates with Nick and Sean surviving and all the bad guys dying. But then Ed Harris gets on the loudspeaker and is like, "I'm going to start killing civilians unless you show up." Because I don't think he knows it's two people at this point. He thinks it's maybe one person. Because they know somebody survived because of the radio that was on
Hmm.
the one of the guys they killed that they took when
Which is
they
smart. I mean, that was
yeah.
good attention to detail, you know? But yeah, they don't really know how many people are left. They're assuming it's one person. I don't know why they assume it's one person. Um, I'm not sure that that makes a lot of sense. And it's also interesting that, like, okay, well, even if it was, why would they have taken the radio and weapon and stuff? Why didn't they have their own? So I don't know. I think they're taking some leaps on that, but yeah.
But yeah, so Sean Connery's plan is that he's going to go distract them
Hmm.
and meet up with them where they said, well, Nick Cage goes after the remaining warheads.
Right.
Um,
Which at this point, like, obviously Stanley, they've shown him he's extremely good at his job. The act of disarming these, though, doesn't seem to really be anything more than just be careful.
right.
Right. So I kind of feel like once you've seen it done, as long as you're careful with it and don't drop it, anybody can pull that chip.
Yeah, it doesn't really take a specialist to do it. It just takes somebody
Right.
with steady hands.
Right. It's a couple of screws, and then you lift out the entire unit. There's no wires to cut or anything like that. And you literally pull a chip card out of it, drop it on the ground, and step on it. Like that's the whole process. And then you put it back together.
Yeah. And basically, Ed Harris's character wanted all these tracking chips. So that he said, bring all the tracking chips to me and I'm not going to kill this guy. And as soon as Sean Connery hears that, he takes the tracking chips out of Nick Cage's pocket and smashes them.
Which, I mean, that seems like the smart thing to do.
Yeah. Because, Nick Cage isn't trained for this kind of thing. So, he might be willing to give in to save this person.
But it does, like, going back to the disarming piece, like, why is Stanley there? Because there's nothing, you don't need to know anything about the chemicals other than they're volatile. All you need to know is how to disarm the thing, and that could have been taught to any number of field agents who are already used to being under combat and under fire and things like that, who probably would have been more cool-headed.
Right.
Now they probably all would have died in the shower shootout, but they wouldn't have known that going into the mission.
Right. So then Mason runs again after he escapes from these guys, because he's constantly running away.
Well, don't they get captured at this point?
He got captured and then he escapes. Or no, wait.
This because Nick
Oh,
gets
okay,
captured
because Nick
too.
gets captured too after he disarms more warheads, and then they're both in jail. Mason breaks him out as he does, and then he decides he's going to leave again.
Because like nobody knows who Mason is, so nobody realizes this is the one person who's broken out of Alcatraz before. So maybe we should tie him up or something.
Right. Um. So they decide to launch a missile at San Francisco.
Yeah, time's up. They were given a certain amount of time to get the money. Obviously, no one's giving them the money because it's a lot. They want like $100 million or something like that.
At this point, there's two missiles left, I think. One of them is this one that they launch, and then they fake it out. Like
Hmm.
they end up, Harris at the last minute decides no, and I think it explodes in the ocean or something.
Yeah, he changes
Which
the coordinates and it crashes in the ocean.
doesn't that seem like it would have some serious ecological consequences if this stuff is, unless like water is the one thing that makes this whole thing
So
ineffective.
I, it's an interesting question. So the whole plan by removing these guidance chips is that the missiles will fall in about 500 feet. So the goal here is for them all to crash in the ocean. That's the goal. Now they talk about this kind of being like aerosol, like up in the air and things like that. So maybe it doesn't expand in water. Maybe that does neutralize it. I don't know, but
Still
they
seems
never
questionable.
explain that.
Plus, what if there's a civilian like boating ship out there, just like hanging out fishing for,
I would think they
his
probably
family?
cleared that. You know what I mean? I think they probably were smart enough to be like, okay, everyone is docked, kind of thing.
Maybe.
but yeah. So Ed Harris changes the coordinates, crashes the missile, which pisses off. This is where the cracks really start to show. This is pissing off Tony Todd and the other main guy. I forget his name, but you get the idea.
Yeah. And so early on in the movie, they talk about what can be used to counteract this particular gas. And the only thing that can do it is a thermite strike of some kind, some sort of thermite sciencey thing.
Yeah, they basically have to fully level and burn the entire island.
Yeah. And but this is untested, and they don't have enough of it to do that.
Right,
Well,
exactly.
they're trying to gather that together because they don't want to pay into his demands. And finally, at this point in the movie, they get the strike approved for the thermite, and they have enough to do it.
Because again, there's the 81 civilians. They're trying not to get them killed either, but 81 civilians versus 80,000. Yeah, terrible situation to be in, but yeah.
Yeah. Um, so there's one last rocket. This is where my notes start to get a little unclear. So you might have to help me with this. You're the
Okay.
Rocket Man is my next note.
Yeah, so basically they escape, right? And they're trying to find the last rocket or two. And there's one in like a lighthouse. It's the lower lighthouse. And Nick is in there trying to disarm it, and that's when Tony Todd shows up. Tony Todd's great. I love him. And he's like kind of this he's like essentially the leader of the mercenaries at
Right.
this point. Like he's third in command, I guess, at this point, because John C. McGinley's character dies. So I think Tony Todd would now be third in command. And he's pissed. And so he's got, a gun and a knife, and he wants to like really fuck up Goodspeed. And so, Tony's like really messing with him, and he's like, I don't need the gun, kind of thing. And they're kind of circling around the missile until this highly trained Navy SEAL type is standing directly in front of the missile with his enemy standing directly in front of the control panel. And yeah, and Goodspeed's like, you're a fan of Elton John? And he says something about not liking the soft shit or whatever. He goes, well, the song Rocket Man, that's you. You're Rocket Man. And it just shoots him off the missile, and it just shoots Tony Todd off the lighthouse. And that's not enough. He has to fall down through like some metal rod pole that's sticking out of the ground.
Of course he does.
It's it's
It's a very 90s cheesy,
it,
situation.
it's the most ridiculous death in the movie by
Oh,
far.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Um, yeah, so at some point I don't remember any of this for what these notes mean. I mean, I've seen this movie several times, but at this point, this movie's long and it was getting past my bedtime, so I started to get a little fuzzy on the details.
Oh god.
My next note is, how is Bubble not broken?
How is Bubble not broken? Okay, so all right. So what happens at this point? So there's one bad guy left, and it's Greg Lee Sporleader. He plays Captain Fry, who's like next in command after Tony Todd's character, and he's kind of a bit of a nutcase too, in a slightly different way. And so he is like the last man standing, because Ed Harris has died. Yeah, we kind of skipped over that scene. It's not a big deal, but there's they have a shootout amongst themselves. Ed Harris and
Yeah.
his number two, and then Tony Todd and his people. They kind of have a shootout, and everybody. Ed Harris dies, and Major Tom Baxter, David Morse's character, he dies too. So there's one guy left. It's Greg's character, Captain Fry. He and Goodspeed are fighting each other at this
Yeah.
point, and we don't really know what happened to Sean Connery, because he was going to swim away. He was going to leave again, right?
Yeah.
He's going to leave again, and Nick has one of the beads, just one. It fell off of the chain, and he was able to catch it. Right, there was a whole big slow mo when that happened. And that's when Sean Connery comes back and he kills this sniper guy to kind of save Goodspeed and everything. And so he's got it in his pocket, and he's rolling around. He's doing this whole fight scene with Fry. He's getting kicked through like a window,
Yeah,
and they're
it's
rolling around
crazy that
fighting.
this thing wouldn't be broken at this point.
Based on the beginning of the movie, it's just
It,
rolling on the ground and like bumps into something and
right,
breaks.
slightly, yeah.
Right? This is like in his breast pocket during an action fight scene where he's getting
And
his
keep in
ass
mind,
kicked.
this is a guy that is like supposed to be an expert on this gas and
Mhm.
not an expert martial artist. And he still decides to keep it in his breast pocket despite, knowing that there's still potentially guys out there that could punch him in the chest or he could fall. Like
And
it seems
he
like a really poor decision for him to carry this around with him.
100%. And he is getting his ass kicked. He's holding his own better than he probably should, but he
Yeah.
is getting his ass kicked. And he eventually puts the bead because he's getting like choked out. And he puts the bead in Captain Fry's mouth and then like hits him in the mouth and it breaks inside Fry's mouth. And at this point, the jets are on the way. Fun fact: the jets are all stock footage of the Blue Angels for those who
Nice.
are fans of that. And so at this point, the gas has been released. Goodspeed has inhaled it. The jets are coming to just carpet bomb the island, and he has to stab himself in the chest.
But first we get a Christ death pose.
Well, not yet. He has to stab himself in the chest
Oh, that's
first.
right.
Then he does the flares, which is he does both flares at the same time, and yeah, that's where he kind of goes out on his knees, arms out wide with the flares as the planes go overhead,
Right.
and one drops a bomb before they see him and they abort. You know, and Nick gets thrown by the explosion out into the ocean.
Yeah, as they still drop the thermite, even though the green flare was going, which
Oh,
but not
only
all of
one.
it. Yeah, only
Yeah.
one little thing. And so Nick decides, to set Mason free at the end of this, before anybody gets there. Although it's still unclear if because I mean, if he starts swimming, they're gonna probably find him.
Well, I don't think he does. So what they in the conversation, Goodspeed's like, go back through.
Oh, that's right. They still had the like Navy SEAL like swimming
Mhm.
things because they use like little power, electric power or whatever, motorized things to pull
Yeah,
you
like
under the
little.
water and
Mhm.
like air breathers.
Yeah, they had like scuba gear and
That's
stuff.
right.
So
He did say that.
yeah.
But and in return, uh, Goodspeed gets the location of the microfilm
Right. I guess
from
we kind of glazed over that. The whole reason he's being held without trial is he supposedly has microfilm that gives away all of like our government's greatest secrets, including who really killed JFK and those types of things.
yeah, yeah, which it's a weird kind of an anticlimactic ending. You know what I mean? Like in the sense that he gets this, but like what is he gonna do with that?
Well, I think the idea was for there to be a sequel. It just never happened.
Yeah.
Right, because that's the thing, right? So all the agents show up, and obviously, like Ernest Paxton, William Forsythe's character, knows that Goodspeed is lying. He knows because he's saying that Mason was
Was
vaporized
incinerate, vaporized. Yeah,
in the
yeah.
explosion, right? And Forsythe is like, okay, buddy, but he lies to Womack also. They both lie to Womack because Forsythe doesn't like how Mason was treated either, right? Womack is like the other bad guy essentially in the
Right.
movie here, and so yeah, that lie happens, and then at the tail end of the movie, Goodspeed and his now wife are stealing the microfilm that's been hidden in this church in the middle of nowhere. And he's looking at, honey, do you want to know who killed JFK? And that's the end of the movie. So I assume there was supposed to be a sequel where he did something with that.
Yeah, because I mean that doesn't really benefit him. If anything, it makes him a target of the government now.
Yeah, I
Unless
mean,
unless he
absolutely.
turns it in, which would completely defeat the purpose of what Sean Connery did.
It is a weird ending. I would have been okay with it if there had been a sequel. But because they never did one,
Yeah.
and obviously now, I mean, I'm not saying they can't do it now. So the original plan for a sequel included John Mason's character returning, which you'd have to recast him now because Sean Connery died in 2020. And he'd be pretty old at this point anyway. So I don't think that would really work. So I don't really know what the intention was supposed to be. Because you're
Yeah.
right. Like he can't if he has this, his whole family is a huge target. If he turns it in, then Mason might as well have turned it in and gotten free anyway. So
Right.
like what do you do? I don't know. Who do you give it to? Like even if you wanted to follow through with it, like who do you give it to?
Yeah. I mean, this
Yeah.
was early days of the internet, so you couldn't just like release it on the internet.
Right. I mean, you have to find like a real trusted journalist somewhere of significance that you could give that to and know that they're going to break the story wide open. I don't know. I mean, part of me would be like, take it back to England maybe and have, you know, the SAS deal with it, but
But then you'd still be a huge target for the rest of your life. Like
right?
no matter what you do, all the arrows are going to point back to you.
I would think
Like if
so.
a random reporter somehow comes up with this microfilm right after this mission, where the guy that got the microfilm, was active. I mean, that seems a little suspicious, right? So it's still going to point back to Stanley Goodspeed. So no matter what, there's like no way to hide himself from
I
the repercussions of having this.
I wouldn't think so. So it is unclear what he's supposed to do with it. It's funny, because the JFK thing has become a bit of a conspiracy joke over the, last decades, but logistically, practically, I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird.
But that's the movie.
That's the movie.
That's the whole movie. So pretty much all the civilians live. No civilians die. All of the bad guys die, except for Womack, I guess.
Yeah.
And Mason is free somewhere. Maybe sees his daughter again. That's unclear.
Yeah,
Right, because
I don't
one
have
of the
any
things
idea.
Goodspeed does is says like go back to my hotel room. I have clothes and money, type of thing. So Mason's on his way. We have no idea where he ends up. You would think that the FBI would be all over, keeping an eye on his daughter and stuff like that. But
Guess not.
guess not.
Yeah, that's the movie.
That's the movie. So now what do we do?
Now we rate it.
Okay, you're not going to read any reviews.
Oh yeah, we should do that. So
We don't
normally at
have
this
to.
point of the podcast, we read some reviews. Good call, man. My brain is fuzzy today. No, we go through and look at some of the 1 star and the 10 star reviews on IMDb, and just to make sure, if because we both, are big fans of this movie, make sure that there's not something that we're missing and that we're not just like in our own little world of thinking it's good when it's not. So Derek, do you think I should start with the 10 star reviews or the 1 star reviews on this movie?
Let's start with the 1 star reviews.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, what people have said is the most helpful and also so it has 46 thumbs up and 45 thumbs down.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
This is from Citric Acid, is the username. Everything wrong with Hollywood. I've often heard things about Michael Bay about how terrible his movies are and how he couldn't direct himself out of a paper bag and so on. Now I was content to not confirm this theory since I haven't heard a good thing about most of his movies, and cheap, overproduced action movies are not generally my cup of tea. But then the opportunity to watch The Rock presented itself, and I figured I might as well see if Mr. Bay was as bad as some people said. Oh yes, he most certainly is. See, The Rock is the explosion-filled wet dream of an ADD-addled teenager. Chases are often inexplicably overdone, with the characters aiming for people and objects with enough cuts to make the whole thing an incomprehensible mess.
Oof.
Character development is forced and crammed between the obligatory action sequences so haphazardly one wonders if any thought at all was put into it. Many shots don't make sense in context and look developed for the film trailer, and there are often massive errors in scripting, though many are late in the film and I don't want to spoil anything. Often the film also goes for cheap emotional moments which simply don't work, especially since the characters are never presented as remotely likable or relatable in spite of the haphazard development. This film has a rating of 7.0 here, yet I found it almost completely unwatchable. Not only is it bad at being an action movie, it also happens to be overly full of itself. I'll even go so far as to say the more recent Catwoman was better, at least it knew it was crap. I
Whoa.
believe that's talking about the Halle Berry Catwoman movie, which is one of the generally agreed upon worst superhero movies of all time.
Yeah, man, that's rough. For perspective, so The Rock does have a 7.4 on IMDb at this point. Catwoman has a 3.5, just for comparison.
This one's from Sam, Beck, and Jess. This film represents everything that is bad about Hollywood and the big studios. The fact that this dreadful, meaningless screenplay was allowed to be turned into a multi-billion-dollar production is a sad indictment of everybody involved, not least Sean Connery, who's clearly one of the most avaricious and least discerning actors around. The dialogue is trite beyond belief, and the plotline riddled with holes the size of the Titanic. The sad thing is that a huge amount of resources and time went into making this nonsense, which could have been used more profitably. Avoid this like the plague.
More profitably? I mean, the movie was very profitable. Like quality aside, it did well. The budget was 75 million. It made 335, which in 1996 money, that was a big movie. So
Yeah.
like like it, don't like it, bad movie, good movie, it
It was
made a
very
ton of
profitable.
money.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just objectively true. So,
We'll do one more 1 out of 10 here. This is from Mandango. Worst action film I've ever seen. No idea why so many people seem to like this crap. It sucks on so many levels. I want to punch the screen whenever I accidentally see a bit of it on TV.
Jesus.
Nick Cage, annoying, whiny voice, totally unlikable character, and spews ridiculous one-liners left, right, and center. Every character is a monumentally one-dimensional stereotype, from the honorable general and his loyal adjutant, or whatever he is, the evil mercenaries, the oh-so-brave Marines who try to storm Alcatraz, Connery's cynical yet good-at-heart SAS man. The list goes on and on. It's jingoistic bullshit in the extreme, and the lines they come out are cringeworthy. The actual plot is so stupid I need about 50 pages to go into it properly. Why the hell would Ed Harris go to all the trouble of stealing VX gas when a few normal bombs planted around the city would have the same effect? Why the hell would they set up on an island letting everyone know where they are so escape would be nigh on impossible? It's so dumb that it makes the film unwatchable. I could go on, but I won't. The only redeeming factor in the whole thing is seeing Cage stab himself in the heart. If only the
Oh my
film ended
God.
there. Utter shite.
That's harsh.
Very harsh reviews. So some 10 out of 10s here. This one has 345 thumbs up and 70 thumbs down from Force. The Rock combined action, adventure, comedy, romance, special effects, and a great plot into one of the biggest worldwide blockbuster action films in decades. Add to the mix Sean Connery, Nicolas Cage, Ed Harris, and a great supporting cast, including John Spencer, William Forsythe, and David Morse. The Rock is one of the best ways to spend 2 hours. This film also devotes a great deal of time and effort to character development, something that most action movies neglect. This film is definitely underrated and worth more praise than it is received. That is crazy how completely opposite of the other reviews that is. The other one was talking about no or forced character development, and this was talking about how it has amazing character development.
Yeah. I mean, the truth is probably somewhere in between.
It's 100% somewhere in between because I don't agree with everything that guy's saying also.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. Charlie 303 says, "What can I say other than Connery at his best as usual? If it's his usual, is it really his best? That would mean it's
He
his
only does
normal.
his best, Ryan.
But then that's not his best. That's the normal thing for him then. Anyway, it's good to see Hollywood remembers the best. It's also good to see an American film portray us little Brits in such high regard. What else would you see a 60-year-old retired SIS agent who's been wrongfully banged up for 30 years and kept away from his daughter break into Alcatraz, take out an entire Navy SEAL team almost empty-handed, save 81 hostages held at gunpoint in a city of 5 million held ransom with 15 deadly poisonous VX gas rockets? Generally excellent acting by Ed Harris, as you could expect, and an almost convincing performance by Nicolas Cage. And that's just the half of it,
That's just the half of it. Okay.
apparently. All right, I don't think we need to go into any more of those. They're all pretty similar.
Okay.
So,
That's fair. That's fair.
yeah. So definitely the truth is somewhere in between. I would not give it a 10 out of 10 or a 1 out of 10. So, but that brings us to the next point when we need to rate it.
Yeah. So we have our Cage O meter. We have two scales that we rate on overall quality and overall caginess. It's a 20-point scale because of how many movies Nick has been in. So our scale is a little bit different, of course. So a 7.4 on IMDb would translate to pretty much a 15 on our scale at the end of the day. So Ryan, do you want to go first on quality or do you want to go first on caginess?
I'll go first on quality. I
Okay,
think IMDb is pretty close to where I'd put it. I think I'd put it about a 14.
14.
It's a good movie. It's better than the average Nicolas Cage movie, but it is a lot of schlock and like explosions. And if you just want to watch an action movie with a bunch of Nicolas Cage and Sean Connery one-liners, then this is the movie for you for sure.
Yeah, so our Trinity ends up kind of very close to each other. So for perspective, so if you're giving this a 14, you also gave Face Off a 14
Okay.
and you gave Con Air a 13.
Hmm.
I gave Con Air a 14 and Face Off a 13,
Okay.
and I'm giving this a 14.
Okay. So they're all pretty close, and that's weird because Face Off is my favorite of those, and Con Air is my second favorite, but I'm giving it a lower score than I gave this one. Um, but when we're talking about quality, it doesn't necessarily equate to favorite. You
Well, that's the
know,
thing. Like Con Air, I love Con Air. It is one of my favorite movies, and I still gave it a 14. It's not like I'm giving it, a
a
19
20.
or a
Yeah.
20 or something like that, right? I love it. I enjoy it. I will watch Con Air anytime somebody wants to watch it.
Yeah, but
It is
we're trying to be
certainly,
objective.
yeah, it's not a cinematic masterpiece.
Absolutely.
you know. It's just got a really fun cast and it's got some great set pieces and stuff. So we got a 14 there. We're even on that. And it does pretty much make the Trinity even,
Yeah.
which is very interesting. At the end of the day, they're right all next to each other. Then we have caginess. So obviously Face Off has the most
Oh yeah.
caginess in it. I
Of
mean,
of the three.
it's
But I still
iconic.
think even Con Air has more caginess than this movie.
And I agree with that as well. This has a bit, right? There's a few lines. Of course, now that they've all left my head. But the one earlier that we talked
Cut the
about,
chit chat a hole.
yeah, exactly. Thank you. Like that's a very cagey delivery. The bit when the leg is twitching and stuff. He's a little cagey there, but mostly he's playing just a very nervous character who's just like trying to get through the day type of thing. So it's not that high
Right.
on caginess. So I'm tempted to put it. I'm trying to think. I don't want to go too low, but I'm thinking maybe like a seven,
Yeah. I think yeah, I don't know. I'd probably go a little higher than that.
a little higher. Okay.
Yeah, I'd probably go with a nine. I think that it's the moments where it's cagey are pretty cagey, and even some of the times when he's not being cagey, it seems like when he's just sitting in a chair naked playing guitar is cagey. That's a Nick Cagey thing to do.
That's fair. And
Um,
that was Nicolas Cage himself. That was his idea to be naked.
there you go. See,
So
I didn't even know that,
yeah,
but yeah, that right there is like a very cagey thing.
Michael Bay
So
didn't want that, and Nick kind of was like, "Well, this way it shows that I'm in my house, that I'm home." I'm like, okay,
right, and that's apparently what he does at his house. But it's very cagey, and I think there's a lot of little moments in this movie where it may not be like the traditional definition of like everything screamed or whispered type cagey, but it does like have that cagey vibe to it. It's still not even like what I would consider average, like a 10
hmm,
cagey movie, but it does have some of those moments. So I'm more like a nine.
okay. So then, kind of going back to the Trinity with Snake Eyes, we went pretty. I'm not Snake Eyes. I'm sorry. Face Off. They're next to each other. We did them back to back. For Face Off, we actually both gave it an 18 on
Yeah,
caginess. That was very high. For Con Air, we were pretty low. We both gave it an 8.
really.
Yeah, this averages to an 8 because I did a 7
Well,
and
there
you
you
did a
go.
9. So this kind of is similar to Con Air.
Yeah.
And obviously Face Off is in a league of its own. So,
For sure. I mean that just reinforces for me that Face Off, if you're a Cage fan, a hardcore Cage fan, Face Off should be the one of those three movies that you want to watch because it's you're getting the most cagey Cage of almost all our movies. I mean, there's very
yeah.
few movies that are 18 plus in our
Hmm.
Cage-o-meter. And it's also the same quality as all the other ones. So if you're just watching it for the Cage experience, then Face Off 100% should be your choice every time.
Yeah,
But Con Air has its own appeal, but it's nowhere
yeah,
near as cagey as Face Off.
100%. And especially if you're limiting it to movies where he's like a major character, then yeah, the number of movies at that level of caginess, unbearable weight of massive talent, and
Vampire's Kiss.
Vampire's Kiss, Renfield is
Yeah.
up there, and that's it.
Deadfall, but
Oh,
he's not a
Deadfall.
main
I'm
character
sorry.
in that. He's
Yeah,
like a side character.
he is smaller in that. Matchstick Men is a 17.
Yeah.
Right, so it's about that's about there, and then there's some smaller stuff like Never on Tuesday. We gave an 18, but he's in it for 30 seconds.
Right.
You know, so it's one of those things where like this is the meme cage type character that
Yeah,
he's
like
playing.
if I tell somebody I do this podcast and they say, "Well, what is one movie that you would tell me to watch if you wanted me to get the gist of why you would do a podcast about this actor?" Face Off would be one of the ones in the running for sure.
I think that's very fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
It doesn't really showcase his acting chops, like how really good he can be, but it shows off his eccentricities so much, like his ability to do the things he does. This
Hmm.
one was very good, but it doesn't really play on those strengths nearly as much as Face Off does.
Yep, 100%. Yeah. So that gives us a 14 on quality and an 8 on caginess for The Rock, and that closes out the Trinity for us. And now, so what we do to pick our next movie is we have our Wheel O Cage, and we only keep a certain number of movies on it, and we have to pull a movie off the wheel. So The Rock comes off the wheel. We have to add a movie to the wheel, but we are running out of movies to add. And so, with that in mind, there are only 4 movies left that have never been on the wheel. that are eligible for us to watch and cover. So we are just going to add all four of them.
Yeah.
So from now on, every available movie will be on the wheel. We won't be adding them as we talk about the podcast anymore. So the four movies joining the wheel are Captain Corelli's Mandolin, Drive Angry, The Retirement Plan, and now The Carpenter's Son, which is his most recent movie that came out in late 2025. So those are now all eligible to be picked. Our next Wheel of Cage will include every remaining eligible movie for him. So if you're curious what that list is, or you're curious what we're going to watch next, check out the Wheel of Cage. We will be doing that spin here shortly. Ryan, anything else for The Rock?
No, I think it's just time we cut the chit chat a-hole.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. We are the Coming of Cage podcast. I'm Derek, and that is Ryan.
We'll see you next time.